Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom surrounded by deep green forests, sparkling rivers, and rolling hills, there lived a kind man and his gentle wife in a small cottage near the edge of a dark, mysterious forest. More than anything in the world, they wished for a child to love, and every night they would sit beneath the stars, dreaming of the day their little family would finally be complete. Beside their cottage stood a tall stone wall, and behind it was the most beautiful garden anyone had ever seen, filled with colorful flowers, fresh vegetables, and magical plants that seemed to glow in the sunlight. In the center of the garden grew a special plant called Rapunzel, whose leaves were so green, fresh, and delicious that people believed they carried a touch of magic. But the garden belonged to the feared witch Dame Gothel, and everyone in the kingdom stayed far away from her because of her dark powers and cruel temper. One day, the woman's dream finally came true when she learned she was going to have a baby, and she was filled with happiness. But as the months passed, she became weak and terribly sick, unable to eat or sleep properly. One evening, she looked out the window and saw the shining Rapunzel leaves growing in the witch's garden, and suddenly she longed for them more than anything else. She begged her husband to bring her just a few leaves, believing they would make her feel better. The man loved his wife deeply and could not bear to see her suffer, so that very night, under the cover of darkness, he climbed over the wall into the witch's garden. Trembling with fear, he quickly picked some Rapunzel leaves and hurried home. The moment his wife tasted them, her strength returned, her cheeks became rosy again, and her eyes sparkled with life. But soon she wanted more. Though terrified, her husband returned to the garden the next night, but this time Dame Gothel caught him. With sharp eyes and a voice as cold as winter ice, the witch demanded to know why he was stealing from her. The poor man fell to his knees and confessed everything, explaining that he only wanted to save his sick wife. Dame Gothel listened carefully, then offered her a terrible bargain. She could take as much Rapunzel as she wished, but when the baby was born, the child would belong to her. Frightened and desperate, the man agreed, hoping somehow things would change. Months later, a beautiful baby girl was born with bright blue eyes and shining golden hair that looked like sunlight itself. Her parents loved her more than words could describe, but their joy was shattered when Dame Gothel appeared at their door and demanded the child. The mother cried and begged, while the father pleaded for mercy, but the witch would not change her mind. In a swirl of dark magic, she took the child away forever. Dame Gothel carried the child deep into the forest and raised her in a tall, lonely tower with no door and only one small window at the top. She named her Rapunzel after the magical plant that had brought her into the witch's life. As Rapunzel grew older, her golden hair grew longer and longer until it became 70 feet long, glowing like spun gold and strong enough to hold a person's weight. Whenever Dame Gothel wanted to enter the tower, she would stand below and call, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," and Rapunzel would lower her long braid so the witch could climb up. Although Rapunzel grew into a beautiful young woman with a sweet voice and kind heart, she spent her entire life trapped inside the tower, never allowed to step outside or see the world. She passed her days singing songs, painting pictures, reading books, and gazing out the window, dreaming of freedom while watching birds fly through the open sky. Dame Gothel constantly warned her that the world outside was dangerous, but deep in Rapunzel's heart, she longed for adventure and for a life beyond the tower walls. One day, a handsome prince riding through the forest heard Rapunzel singing, and her voice was so beautiful that it stopped him in his tracks. Curious, he followed the sound until he discovered the strange tower hidden among the trees. He searched for a way inside, but found none, so he returned day after day, until one afternoon he secretly watched Dame Gothel arrive and heard her magical words. After the witch left, the prince stepped forward and called, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Down fell the shining golden braid, and the prince climbed up into the tower. When Rapunzel first saw him, she was frightened because she had never met anyone except the witch, but the prince spoke gently and kindly, telling her stories about mountains, oceans, villages, festivals, and all the wonderful things beyond the tower. Rapunzel listened with wide eyes and growing excitement, and slowly the two became close friends. Over time, friendship turned into love, and every evening the prince returned to visit her, bringing stories from the outside world while Rapunzel sang songs for him. Together they planned an escape, and the prince brought her a silk ladder so they could finally leave the tower forever. But one day, Rapunzel accidentally revealed her secret when she innocently asked Dame Gothel why she was so much heavier to pull up than the prince. Furious with rage, the witch screamed and cut off Rapunzel's beautiful golden hair with giant scissors. Then she took Rapunzel far away to a lonely desert and left her there all alone. That evening, when the prince arrived at the tower, the witch lowered Rapunzel's braid and tricked him into climbing up. Instead of finding Rapunzel, he found the furious witch waiting for him, and with cruel laughter, she pushed him from the tower. He fell into a patch of thorny bushes that scratched his eyes and left him blind. Heartbroken, the prince wandered the world for months, stumbling through forests and villages, surviving only on berries and water while endlessly searching for Rapunzel. Meanwhile, Rapunzel lived alone in the desert, singing sad songs about the prince she missed with all her heart. One day, after wandering for a very long time, the blind prince heard a familiar voice carried by the wind. His heart raced as he followed the sound, calling Rapunzel's name, and when Rapunzel heard him, she ran into his arms with tears streaming down her face. As she cried tears of joy and sorrow, 2 tears fell onto the prince's injured eyes, and suddenly something magical happened. Because her tears came from true love, they healed him completely, and the prince could see again. Overjoyed, the two embraced tightly, laughing and crying at the same time, grateful that they had finally found each other once more. Together they traveled back to the prince's kingdom, where everyone celebrated their return with music, dancing, flowers, and happiness. Rapunzel and her prince were married in a beautiful ceremony, and though her hair never grew as long as before, she no longer cared, because she finally had the freedom she had dreamed of all her life. She could walk through gardens, feel the grass beneath her feet, explore the world, and live beside the people she loved. As for Dame Gothel, she realized that no magic could ever defeat true love, and she disappeared forever into the shadows. And so Rapunzel and her prince lived happily ever after, proving that love, courage, and freedom are stronger than even the darkest magic.